Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 239 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is David Howe.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is Jordan Willis.
And oh boy, we got a great show for you people this evening or day. I don't know. What time is it? You tell us. Write it in the comments. We got a wonderful show we're going to be doing with a very special guest. Kate Ludlow is joining on the show today from Devolver Digital. Been on the show before. We're having Kate on today to talk all about E3. E3 is officially dead. The ESA came out and they gave us a JPEG. They told us the thing is over. We're going to be talking about what that means for the industry and then also kind of what that's like from a publisher's perspective. We're going to be getting Kate's insight into all of that in the main topic. But before that, we got a whole lot of news and rumors we're going to be going over as well. Some of those include Nintendo made a year in review. Eiji Aonuma has said that we likely will not be getting a Zelda Maker and much more. But before we get into that, how are we doing? Patrick, you're back on the show.
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you?
He is risen.
You holding up?
I will go first. I will try not to make this too long because I know our intros have been going long. I am doing better. I have had a really long, weird 10 days or whatever it's been. Just try to keep this brief. My kid came home from school on Friday before last. He's like, I was coughing all day and he didn't really want to eat dinner. And then that night he started having just really high fevers. So we went to the urgent care clinic on Saturday and they tested him and he had influenza A. And so my wife had a big work thing on Sunday. So on Saturday night, I stayed up with him because every 3 hours he needed medicine to because his fevers were scary high. And he was also delirious, the kind of where one thing the doctor was like, if they get delirious and they make no sense, that's kind of a scary warning sign. And so he was making no sense in bed. And so I'd be like, we got to get up and talk. You know what I mean? Are you
stay with me?
Exactly. And he would start to be like, yeah, I think I was hallucinating. And so I was like, okay, you can go back to bed and we can try this again. But anyway, so because of that, I got it. And I didn't get my flu shot this year, so everybody should go get the flu shot. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law is staying with us, and she has a cough of some kind, separate. So I'm trying to keep. She's older. She's 80 in her 80s, so we're trying to really keep her safe.
You're trying to not kill her.
Yeah, right. And so it was a terrible thing. I think I caught what she had as well, because my recovery I am not recovered. And then on this Friday, my kid came into the room. My wife has started coughing a lot. And my kid came into the room and was like, I think I have an ear infection. And so on Saturday, we go to the urgent care clinic again after he throws up randomly multiple times as well, which is not related to an ear infection. And they say, yeah, you got a double ear infection. And they swab my wife because she's sick as well, and she's like, I don't think this is the flu, and it's not. It's something else, which I think I also got. And so it's just been I missed work all week. I didn't do anything productive. I didn't even have fun. I just sat in bed, you know what I mean, and just was miserable. That was my week.
I disagree. I think you did one thing productive.
What's that?
You stayed alive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you kept the dream alive, Patrick. Yeah. It's very sorry to hear that you had seemingly all the illnesses.
I'm on my way up, though. I really do. Even I've been sick today. I'm still coughing and stuff, but
you seem to be in good spirits.
I feel a lot better. It's also good to be with y'all. It's been improving my attitude. So,
well, you had a lot of energy as you recounted that story about having no energy.
Yeah, right.
So I think this is a really good sign.
I'm on a.
Yeah.
Tonight I will.
That
sleep.
happened to me though. When I got sick too, it ended up with an ear infection. That shit always kind of turns into one of those. Yeah, that's annoying. But gotta get on them antibiotics.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm still a little bit just been super busy because we took our grandma to Disney World, and that's just its own whole thing. It wasn't relaxing. You know what I mean? Unless you're on the ride in that moment, it's not a super relaxing.
And even then, you're stressed the fuck out.
But these teacups are crazy. You and I had the same joke.
And then I came back and I went straight back to work, no days off. And then I've been filming the feature. And then I was like looking at my Outlook, and it's like I don't have a day off until Christmas Eve, of which I am then driving to see family, and I'm just like seeing the road ahead of me, and I'm just like trying to stay on course. But that being said, I think I'm doing pretty all right.
Thanks for making time for the podcast.
Just busy. Oh man, I love being here. So I mean, I'll always make time for the pod if I have the ability to make time for the pod. But
I feel you about that. Like I was also having a weird day today, and then it's like meeting up with you guys doing the podcast. It's always a nice little turnaround. Yeah, I'm pretty burned out right now, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm ready for this fucking year to be over.
Yes,
it's like December has like kind of sped by in a weird way, but I'm like, damn, dude. I just like I'm ready to clock out for like 2 weeks, which is not really feasible. I can't really do that myself. So I kind of see where you're at, Jordan. Yeah. And hopefully the listeners of this podcast aren't like, can these guys just stop bitching for 1 second?
Have a good week for one fucking chance.
Yeah. I promise the main topic with Kate is really awesome. You guys are going to have a really good time. But no, I'm ready for a nice break, and hopefully we can all relax a little bit over the Christmas break and come back with some really nice content for you lovely people.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna, in the interest of moving quickly, I'm gonna talk about some shout outs from our last episode, which was on the Game Awards. We got some comments on YouTube from Scary Fingers and Carusetta, and over on our Discord, Cool Uncle Vince, Medium Quality, Segovia, Swampy Southpaw, Hans, and maybe some others. If I missed Steve Irwin, I missed you, the huge other Dylan, Emma. Great conversations over on the Discord always. And then if there's anything we talk about this week that, you want to share with us, definitely send us a note, leave us a comment. Like David said, let us know how your week was. That's not what you said, but that's what I'm saying. And then we'll try to shout you out next time. And also, we always appreciate it if you could share the podcast. If you have a friend who likes Nintendo, tell them about this podcast, and then head over to the YouTube and help the algorithm by hitting the like and subscribe buttons.
That's right. Yeah. And go ahead and leave a comment on who you think the better host was, me or Patrick.
Everything is a competition.
Wow.
Jordan,
okay. I'm not even in the running. Okay.
No,
great.
you're not in the running.
Yeah.
Fair.
Sorry, Jordan. It's just how it is. I don't make the rules.
I don't even want
to. But with that, we will move on to the news and rumors for the week. So first up, it's the end of the year. It's Spotify Wrapped season, as I like to call it, where all of the apps that we use like to trick us into thinking they're our friend by giving us our own data for a little bit. Including
cynical way to look at the world.
Yeah, thanks. I promise it gets better. The interview with Kate is going to be great. No, it is fun to look at these things, though. I'm a sucker for them as well. The Nintendo one came out, and since we're a Nintendo podcast, we got to talk about that. The Nintendo year in review is what they call it, the Switch year in review. How did y'all's Switch year in review come out? Were you surprised? Is it skewed by people playing on your account?
A little, yeah. We do a lot of game sharing.
I think all the three of us skew each other's accounts.
Yeah.
I definitely gave you some points for Pikmin 4 on Patrick's end because I did play in 100% that game.
Yeah.
I gave you some Sea of Stars playthrough. I'm pointing like it's going to be at. But
it's probably
no, but it was nice. I mean, these are always nice to see. I think these things have kind of lost their luster for me a little bit, like as they've gone on. And it's also like, I don't use any one particular thing as my main thing. It's like when the Spotify thing comes around, I'm like, oh man, okay, yeah. I mean, I listened to this one George Harrison song like a shit ton of times, and now it's like dominating my chart or whatever. Like same with like the Nintendo stuff. It's like never really. Like Steam just put one out as well, and it's like, okay, this is kind of fun, but I think I'm gonna maybe stop paying attention to them in the future because I think like I just want to enjoy the things I enjoy and like not have like weird anxiety about like what my chart looks like to other people. You know what I
Right?
mean?
Like be judged by your tastes in music.
I also would like someone to figure out how to combine all of them onto
Yeah.
one. So instead of having to look at like 4 different ones, I can just have one centralized one, because I think, as we are now, we're a split gaming community. We don't all just
Yeah.
play on one thing all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just like weird to be like, oh, this was my one for this and this and this and this. Like, no, I want to see like all my gaming stats for the year in one, not like segmented out.
You want an audio scrobbler of video games. Do you remember Audio Scrobbler?
Is that Last FM?
Last.fm? Yeah.
I was a big Last FM head.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. I got locked out of my account like 4 times, and then I said I gave up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this does really suit people who mostly or only play on Switch and don't game share or have kids play or play, like, you know what I mean? Because mine is definitely screwed up because I played a lot of games because my son loves to play the games on his account. So like Mario Wonder, Pikmin 4, you made up for the fact that Pikmin 4 is not played on my account, Jordan, stuff like that. But
You're welcome.
It doesn't feel right. But for those who it worked out well, let us know, I guess, if you haven't already. A lot of us were sharing this already in the Discord. If you want to see people, come stop by the Discord. And we'll move on to some news that came out this week around Another Code Recollection. This game is coming out January 19th. It's one of these sort of unusual Nintendo releases, I guess we could say, right? It's 2 games, am I right about that? Like in that are older that are being remade, right? Or is it enhanced or something?
They're remakes of the DS games, but and I unfortunately haven't tried this demo yet. I wanted to make time for it, but yeah. I guess that's the news. But I haven't tried the demo yet. But from what I hear about it, it's almost like a whole brand new game. It's like it's kind of goes pretty beyond like a remake into kind of just adding tons and tons and tons of new stuff into this. So from what I understand, it seems like it's really cool and it's going to be a lot of fun whenever it comes out.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, if this Another Code interests you at all, you now have the chance to go check out at least a demo of it for now on the eShop. So do that. And then not on the Nintendo, but a Nintendo game, the Link's Awakening, a fan remake deluxe PC port of the game was created and released and made popular on the internet within the last week, and of course has now been forced offline because of how, I mean, everybody was talking about this. David,
as soon as the news outlets started reporting on it, Nintendo caught wind of it pretty quickly. Yeah,
it was like posted up on itch, right, David? I know you tried this out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I as soon as I saw that it was out, I went to itch.io and downloaded it like immediately because I knew it was going to get taken down, And so it was like basically what it is it's called Link's Awakening DX HD. It is basically a PC port of the Game Boy Color version of Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening that, kind of does away with the screen by screen transitions and just makes the whole map one big continuous area that you can zoom in and out of at will. So if you're playing on a 4K monitor, you could play it at 4K with the map zoomed all the way out and still be moving around the map in real time. It's a pretty cool idea for a game, and it's a really interesting modern way to play Link's Awakening. And I downloaded it right away. I got it running on my Steam Deck and really have enjoyed my time with it so far. I've beaten a couple dungeons already in the game, and it's a very fun, feasible way to play this game. If you're looking for something that's more akin to the Game Boy version, but has the modern quality of life stuff from the Nintendo remake, right? Like such as being able to map multiple items to buttons, so you don't have to like pause and stuff like that. There's a lot of like little quality of life stuff that they added in.
I had one question about this. Do the enemies move normally, you're just going screen to screen, so the enemies would not move from one screen to the next.
No, so they stay within their boundaries of what the screen would be. So the gameplay is kind of preserved in that way as it would be in the original. It is a little weird. Like there's that scene where like you find the raccoon and you throw the dust on him and he bounces around the screen. He's kind of bouncing off of nothing. He's bouncing off of where like the screen would end originally. You know what I mean? But it's like, but in a way, it makes it kind of more true to what the game was, and it's not changing too much up. But yeah, obviously, Nintendo see indeed this like right away because they've got their own remake of this game that they still want people to buy.
Yeah.
So it's it's certainly not surprising that happened. This is why people when they do PC ports like this, put up the patch files and then make you patch it yourself with grabbing assets from the ROM or whatever, so you're not actually hosting Nintendo owned like property and assets like on itch.io or something like that. But this is in the Internet Archive now. It's out there. If you ever want to play this, it's not going to be hard to find, and I certainly would recommend it. It's a really cool way to play this game.
Well, sticking with the topic of The Legend of Zelda, Aonuma, who is the sort of head, he's technically the lead producer of all these Zelda games, I believe, or maybe not the lead producer because that's probably like the head of Nintendo or whatever, but like a major producer on the Legend of Zelda series. He's been making the rounds and did an interview with Polygon. And I think a couple of weeks ago, he did an interview with somebody else. I think in light of probably Tears of the Kingdom, being nominated for and winning awards makes sense. And among other sort of little interesting tidbits, I think from this interview, Polygon directly asked a question that I think a lot of people have wondered and wanted, which is, should there be, or is Nintendo ever going to make something like a Mario Maker for The Legend of Zelda, a Zelda Maker, if you will? Partly because, you look at some of the recent releases, Link's Awakening remake had that little dungeon maker element to it, and then Tears of the Kingdom has a very creative gameplay, but the answer was essentially no, that they don't want to force people to be creative to play a game, which is kind of a funny answer because it's
like what so much of Tears of the Kingdom was.
Well, and also does Mario Maker force you to? No, you could just go play levels. So there's you could be the person that just goes and plays. But anyway, that was the answer. So I don't think we're going to get any sort of official Zelda Maker, which is kind of a bummer, I guess. Yeah, I think it'd be a cool idea. I think the whole idea of level editors and making stuff, especially for long-term franchises, people like that.
I think we need something less complicated than RPG Maker, but more robust than Game Maker Garage. And I feel like something like a Legend of Zelda Maker game would fit right in that sweet spot. But whatever.
Like so many other things that Nintendo decides not to do, fans have done. There's a make your own Zelda dungeon game called Legend Maker, which is on PC. It's very much a Link to the Past style. I think even on Switch, there's a game called Super Dungeon Maker, which is really similar to a Zelda dungeon maker, right? These are not obviously going to have the same quality and assets, and it's not going to have a huge player base that a Zelda Maker would have. But if you're craving that experience, these things exist. That said, I get why they don't want to do this. I think Mario Maker makes so much more sense. To have little bite-sized levels that you can jump in between is so much more palatable than having to sit down and figure out an hour-long dungeon.
There would be some terrible shit.
Yeah, and it's that's not really, I don't play a Zelda game because I'm I just want to play 10 dungeons in a row. It's I want the whole experience, and the dungeons are interwoven within that, right? So I get why this isn't happening, but it is kind of a bummer that they're not even really entertaining the idea.
Yeah. I think the other thing that came out of this interview, and I'll admit that I skimmed it and did not read the entire thing, is just how passionate for The Legend of Zelda. It's Fujibayashi is another person who's on the interview, and just both of them kind of it's cool to see people who get to work on these games that are loving it, and obviously they do because the games are so good. And it sounds also like they're excited to make future games. Obviously, they don't hint at anything necessarily, but so yeah, we can move on. I don't know a whole lot about this, but I do know that there has been some controversy surrounding the Completionist, who is a online video game personality who's done some like Nintendo events and things in the past as well. And he was featured in the Sea of Stars game, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast, but they've pulled him from the game, which I think is really interesting. And I kind of almost am more interested in talking about that fact separate from the controversy. Like I guess there's some sort of charity scandal and there's some back and forth about it. I don't pretend to know all the ins and outs, and I don't even know if I want to, but if somebody wants to briefly explain it, then please.
Yeah, I mean, I think instead of listening to us talk about it, lots of people have made videos on it. And so I think it's worth probably hearing them get a lot more into it. Carl Jobst being one of the main guys who is really kind of uncovering a lot of the charity fraud that was being done, at least allegedly, by the Completionist. But yeah, Gerard put out a video kind of negating a lot of, it was an apology, quote air quotes there, negating a lot of what Carl had said in his videos. And then, Carl put out another video kind of going over all the reasons that apology was bullshit. And then it was because of that. Yeah. The devs of Sea of Stars, who had worked with the Completionist in the past, decided to remove them from the game just to kind of like not have that controversy in the game, which is immersion breaking.
Yeah, so anyway. They were an NPC, right? There was a clear reference to the Completionist. And I think this is interesting, like setting aside the controversy, right? Like it's kind of like removing Mike Tyson from Punch-Out or something, which is another thing that has happened.
Ted Kaczynski from Legacy of Goku 2.
But I mean, this has happened with YouTubers before as well. I think Ukulele had JonTron in the game, and then it turned out he's like a Nazi, and they're like, okay, well, let's remove the Nazi. You know what I mean?
And I feel both ways
just don't
about
partner with YouTubers.
Yeah, maybe that's probably the real lesson. But I also feel both ways about like you make a piece of art. And like you do the best you can with the knowledge you have. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if we digitally remove Kevin Spacey from something, or so, you know what I mean? I totally get why people do this, and I don't fault the Sea of Star devs for doing it, especially because the game's pretty recent and whatever. But it's kind of weird when art gets modified after the fact.
I will say, like for this though, it's like such a small aspect of the game. It doesn't really change anything about the game other than an NPC you talk to in the town of Mirth.
And they're just going to change his sprite and character name anyway.
And to David's point originally too, I think you were saying like it was kind of immersion breaking that he was in the game anyway. I kind of think it's weird when stuff like that happens anyway, right? Like this is a fantasy world and we've got references. Yeah, anyway, it's a weird situation. But we can move on unless anybody's got any other thoughts. It's just an interesting thing.
Maybe everybody should donate to actual dementia charities.
Yeah. All right.
We can leave it there.
And we're going to move on to some Kojima news, which is that apparently there is a Death Stranding movie that is being made. And not just being made anywhere, but by A24.
The Devolver of movies.
What can we explain what A24 is? Because I don't really know a whole lot about A24.
Really? You don't know what A24 is?
Well, I know a little bit, but
they have an Oscar.
Yeah, I think they've got a few, but yeah, A24 is like kind of. They're like the independent. Like they really are like the Devolver of movies. It's like they kind of are one of the biggest like indie studios out there, right? So they're kind of going to a lot of the film festivals, picking up art house films, and then getting them like wide releases for the most part in movie theaters. And so Kojima has been posting a lot of him on Twitter, meeting with Ari Aster, Jordan Peele. These art house like filmmaker guys, you know what I mean? And so I think, and even visiting the A24 offices and stuff like that. Right. So, Kojima is like a film head and like loves this kind of stuff. And I think loves that style of movie, that kind of like indie darling, but not like in an Oscar baity way, kind of like edgy indie darling is kind of like what A24 does really well. So I think that this is a match made in heaven, personally. Kojima working with A24 to get a Death Stranding movie out. Question now is who's gonna direct it?
Yo, it's such a. I mean, I feel like Kojima probably wants to do it himself, but I don't think that they would let him. They might, but I mean, as a I wonder what mistakes he would make as a first time filmmaker, knowing how long all of his fucking games are. Like, I just, it's like so many things could go wrong, but I would love to see him take a shot at it. And I really like that A24 is doing this because, they were, when they first started out, they were like really kings of like the $1 to $10 million budget movie. And then they've kind of been slowly ramping up. Like, I want to say Everything Everywhere All at Once was maybe like a $25-30 million budget movie.
That was an A24 movie? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
they do a lot of stuff.
It looks incredible. So, when you're saying like Death Stranding, like how are they going to pull it off? It's like, no, they totally have the means and the capability to pull off that type of world on screen. So like, yeah, definitely what you said. And they also have like the wherewithal to give a creator their artistic license to do that without a bunch of all the bullshit that comes with working with a major studio. So I'm super stoked for this. I would love to see Kojima make a movie, do anything in that world. I'm here for it. I love it.
Let's fan cast. Who's going to play Norman Reedus?
Conan O'Brien.
Yeah. No, this is interesting though, and it's still early. We don't know a ton about it, but it's he's got a lot going on right now though.
Yeah.
He's working. I don't think that he should probably direct this because he's directing Death Stranding 2 and OD, and there's a Disney Plus documentary coming out about him that he's promoting all the time, and there's this movie. So it's like he's got all these coals on the fire. I think it'd be great for him to collaborate with somebody on this. But I would like to see him direct a movie at some point. I just don't know if I need to see a movie version of his game directed by him. It kind of defeats the purpose, Yeah.
I'm doing my own adaptation. Yeah.
Just play the game. It's like basically a movie anyway. Yeah.
Well, we'll move on then to our last news item, which is related to The Last of Us, and in particular, the online component of the Last of Us game the online Last of Us game that had been in development has officially been canceled. Naughty Dog has said, which is interesting. I know there's a lot of positive reaction to this cancellation from you, David, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overselling this, but because they're so focused on single player narrative games, and online games are kind of a different beast, right? Like, it's not linear. It's not often as singular of a narrative, and it's obviously multiplayer. So it did feel like something that was maybe being shoehorned in, or though I think at the same time you could expand a universe, right? Like, and maybe it could have worked, but obviously either it wasn't working or somebody there had the power to cancel it so they could focus on something else. Yeah. I think even like in one of these articles here, like I think it's interesting because one of the Naughty Dog people saying like we had two paths in front of us, right? To solely become a live service game studio or continue to focus on single player narrative games that had defined their heritage. So like,
yeah, it was definitely throwing shade at at Sony. I think it was throwing shade at AAA publishers that are just forcing everybody to make live service. I think it's great that they were able to take a stand and be like, fuck this. This is how it works. It would have destroyed the company. It would have destroyed what you love about us. We would have become a Fortnite clone, and they would have failed. I mean, I think that if anybody could have done it, it probably would have been a Last of Us game. I think that that's a big enough IP to where maybe it could have done well, but nobody wants that, Like, I mean, I think people want Last of Us multiplayer. People were pissed that they took the multiplayer out of part 1 when that got remade. They didn't bring the multiplayer from the original game in. People want that, but they didn't want it to be live service. They didn't want it to be microtransactions.
Right.
Like you can make I miss when there could be multiplayer in games and it wasn't like a platform for you to make money off of. It's just a multiplayer component of your game. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's good that they took a stand and they were like, fuck this, we're not going to do that. I think it's a wake-up call. I hope more people pay attention to that. I do think it's fucking stupid that they were forced into this from the beginning and that people had to lose their jobs. You know, people did get laid off from Naughty Dog already, and we kind of knew this was going to happen, or we knew this was the inevitable outcome of that. But it's like, man, y'all didn't have the foresight before hiring a ton of people and then letting them go and wasting all these years in development on a project that's never going to see the light of day that people were excited for. You know, not everybody was like ho-humming this. People really wanted to see this, and you hyped it up and you spent years developing it and then pulled the plug. I don't like that aspect of it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you know, I think we should, hopefully this is a lesson on just not to even start into this endeavor, because we're getting to the point where these live service games are dying before they come out.
Yeah.
You know,
well, real briefly to that point, the Verge article about this says that this adds to like a Sony, you know, Sony had planned 12 live service games to release before March 2026. And now there are only plans for 6, which is still a lot.
So
like
still too many that are all going to fail. Like,
like maybe they should focus on one, or you know what I mean? Like one that like, anyway,
I mean, the only one I could even remotely see being a success for them is Horizon Zero Dawn thing, you know, which is in development as well, until that inevitably gets the fucking plug pulled too, because they're like, we want to make Horizon 3 and not this bullshit that we're all like stuck into right now. We don't even like Fortnite, you know? So it's like, so anyway, whatever. This obviously, we made a whole episode on live service games. This kind of shit gets me fired up, but I'm really happy I'm happy in theory that it's gone. I'm really sorry that the road to good intentions was seemingly paved with the blood of innocent developers.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for the news then. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have Kate Ludlow on, and we're going to talk all about the death of E3 and what that means for the future. All right, we are back. And this week we are talking about E3 being officially no more, canceled forever. And it's not just us anymore. We've got a guest with us. Wonderful Kate Ludlow has joined the podcast. Thank you so much.
Hello, Kate. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a minute, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, you were on like one of our fucking like first episodes. It was like really
it was
far
like
back.
2017 or something like that. Yeah.
It was a long time ago. I didn't have any facial hair back then.
Yeah.
That is not true.
No, you actually did have a beard.
Yeah, I definitely did.
I remember beards.
For those who might not have been listening since the dawn of the beginning of podcasting, do you mind just introducing yourself to the listeners and some of what you do, Kate?
Yeah, I'm Kate Ludlow. I'm in Austin, Texas. I do special operations for Devolver Digital, which is all of the weird stuff, but mostly it's the merch, the travel, the events, just keeping everybody and everything plugged in around the world.
Hell yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and if you want to hear more about that, we talked about that on that episode you were on before, so you can go back to one of our first dozen or so episodes and listen to that segment. But we have you on today, given that you do these events and, you have a lot of experience with that and presumably some thoughts on the fact that E3 is gone and what that means. So we're going to talk about it with that perspective in mind, and maybe just sort of in general as well. What about, maybe we just start there with the general thoughts. This news broke this past week that they put out this image of like, thanks for the memories kind of a thing.
So long and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think that it didn't come as a surprise to anybody in the industry.
Right.
I think it also still kind of offered like, oh, okay, well, it's really dead. I know that a lot of us still every June had high hopes. We're calling our people like, is it going to happen? We're calling our vendors from the event planning standpoint of it. So it was very sad to see it go.
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't a surprise, but a confirmation. Like I feel like this has happened because they've canceled it the last several years or whatever. So there's been this vibe of, oh, it's canceled. Oh, it's canceled. Now it's definitely canceled.
Yeah, and it's the writing seemed to have been on the wall in so many ways. It was like I think we got confirmation that ReedPop backed out last year. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
and so it's like, were they going to come up with something all brand new by themselves? I mean, like. They just had to give out like a JPEG for us all to like kind of like finally accept that it was gone.
I keep thinking about it in terms of like your family Christmas parties. Like you used to have 100 people there, and now you might only be doing about 15 people there. So I think that like maybe expectations didn't really get lowered. And, the last 3 years have not been kind to any of us, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's just no Christmas party.
That's just no. I mean, I'm having 4 people over from my family pretty much. So,
well, we're actually going to have a Christmas party, but it's going to be in July.
And it's going to be called the Summer Christmas Fest.
Yeah, the summer Christmas party.
Well, I know, Devolver's presence in the past, back when E3 was a thing, and it was a thing that actually people went to in person. Was always kind of like a little bit on the outskirts of the event anyway, right? Like, I know you talked about this when we had you on before, but like you guys kind of did the big like indie meetup in the parking lot a lot of times, right?
It was very much a renegade event. We were never officially part of it, which is looking back, like, okay, sorry. But
do you think, are you saying that it's Devolver's fault that E3
it's Devolver? Yeah, that's the headline. Pull that quote there. No, it's kind of like a lot of people's stories. When it first started, we couldn't afford to be inside. So we just showed up in town. Our PR company just threw a little tiny event. And then it just kind of grew. And then it was, why would we go inside when we can have barbecue and sausage wraps out in the parking lot across the street?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. What year was that you guys started doing events around that time?
1947. No, it would have
post-war was a different time.
Yeah, it was a little bit before me. I believe that the first offsite was 2011. So a year after, 2 years after Devolver started. My personal first one was 2015.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that people have been looking forward to around that time, and something that has continued during the, like the Summer Game Fest era of summer game announcements, I suppose, the Keeley Fest, is like y'all's, you had your own digital kind of direct in a way, right?
Right?
Did you call it the Devolver Direct? Is that like what it's called?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a skew of like the Nintendo Direct. They were the first to sort of say like, hey, we're going to do our own thing. So we were kind of making fun of that a little bit, that's what that event is to us. It's, we can take a couple of pot shots at the industry, take a couple of pot shots at ourselves, and then show off our games. And just make sure that we kind of remind everybody that it's not that serious. Like, it's just video games.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we did a parody of the Nintendo Direct, and that was our first. And it would run concurrently with E3.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be in the Devolver Mansion, which is where we used to stay, which is a very interesting definition of the word mansion. But we would all be there like summer camp, and it'd be like, it's the big performance. We're gonna watch Nina Struthers. And so it was kind of already moving to an online presence before, we even stopped having the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like, we've been seeing that more and more with everybody. And I think that's kind of like, even though it's, y'all were doing, it was a great way to show off the games, but it was also clearly a parody of what everybody else was doing at the time. Even that kind of started shifting to we're not even like doing the stage thing anymore. Like, it was kind of, the writing has been on the wall for so long.
They've already held a funeral for E3, right? They held that like 15 years ago. So people have kind of been saying that. But at the same point in time, the entire games industry, and then the fans started showing up. Everybody wanted to be in LA in June for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that reason was fellowship, friendship, and some sausage wraps.
Unless you're Sony.
And now we've got Volvi too. also.
Now we got Volby. Well, we've always had Volby.
Oh, always, right.
Volby.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the documentary of old
he was
archival
there.
footage. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry.
growing up, like that's actually the best part of my job is that growing up, I would look at characters like Volby, and they meant so much to the entire industry. And it was like, I just one day hope that I get a chance to even remotely work with Volby, just be around him a little bit. And even in the 10 years that I've been at Devolver, this is my first year to actually get to meet him. But it's pretty special.
Nice.
That's great. That's great to hear. Truly an inspiration.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of talking about, E3 like it's been gone for a while and all that. And in many ways it has, but there's this question, I guess, of, the different, and you kind of talked about this, how fans started showing up and it's kind of changed over time. And then the question I guess I have in my mind is, since it's officially gone, is there a need or a desire for a centralized place from different perspectives, like from the fans' perspective or from gaming journalists' perspective or from bigger or smaller, companies? And I kind of wanted to walk through that. Like, I think it's very clear to me watching the reaction from fans that fans wanted and continue to want a centralized distribution of this. They maybe seem the most upset. I don't know, or you know what I mean? Obviously, it wouldn't have gone away if all the big people still wanted it, right? Because they would have made it happen. So I guess I'm curious, maybe Kate, from your perspective, as somebody who's working for a well-known but smaller compared to your Nintendos and Sonys. Where do you land on that question? Would it still be desirable to be a part of a bigger thing like this, or does this give you an opportunity to do whatever you want in a way?
Yeah, I think it is still entirely desirable. And in your notes, you had the fan conventions, the industry conventions, then just sort of like the general meetups and things like that, and then you have like smaller press events. I think that all four are still extremely valuable, and people are really desiring more of that human connection. So the industry needs something somewhere in a sunny locale where we can get together, blow off steam, connect, talk about what we've been working on. The things that you can't say over email because you might even be NDA'd, but like you could say them over a cheeky pint at the Fig or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then also the fan connection, I didn't feel that it was super valuable to E3, but something like a PAX is so incredibly valuable. Even as a publisher, watching our developers interact with their fans, I mean, we always call it's like the best QA you could get. You're watching real-time feedback and seeing someone enjoying your game. So these meetups are still inherently so valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we're also seeing people we've always worked from home at Devolver. Like I've been working from home for 10 years. I had Zoom on my computer before any of it went down, right? Like I didn't have to install it last minute.
Right there.
Yeah.
Actually. I'm actually impressed by that.
Yeah. But it's we've been able to do some pretty incredible things digitally. And something like the Summer Games Fest online, the Game Awards, seeing all of the ways that people are able to just present themselves online. What I think that has done is it's opened at the second level or fourth or fifth level or wherever we're at right now, but it's made it so much more accessible. So if you're at home and you can't afford a flight or you have mobility issues or you have mental health issues and you don't like to be in a crowd or in a public space, you're now offered a little bit more entree into what we've got going on. You don't have to show up in LA in June to be a part of the Cool Kids Club. So I think that the future is going to have to just balance all of those different things. How does the industry get to meet up? How do we get to connect with fans and offer them fan service and see their enthusiasm and hype ourselves up and come back and be like, okay, so we're doing this demo and right around the 10-minute mark, everyone just starts freaking out over this feature. Like we got to double down on that feature. Like that's so invaluable. Like, you can't pay money for that, right?
Right.
You just have to see what the fans want.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's just about like kind of finding the right balance.
it's funny when you're talking about how you guys all work from home and have been working from home. You know, like, you know, I work in animation, and it's really similar in this industry as well. And I imagine that's true not only for like publishers like yourselves, but also for indie game developers. You know, like they're developing out of their homes a lot, and I'm sure a lot of them are not like super like to go outdoorsy people, you know, like I mean, I'm not saying that that's like true of all game developers, but I know it's like a lot of my coworkers, we've had the option to either work from home, work like flex hours, or work full time back at the office. And like the large majority of them want to work from home still, you know what I mean? And so I think that if anything, this kind of like post-COVID world is like leveling the playing field a lot for people like that, you know, who have kind of always felt like at a disadvantage in situations like this. And so in that way, it's not like terrible. I think it's like a blow for the extroverts, right? that really get off on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, let's not talk about how I just spent 3 months in bed basically just sobbing and canceling events for the first March to June of 2020.
All right.
No, I mean, but I'm an extrovert. I love these shows. I love to go out. I love to connect with fans. I love to connect with the developers we work with, the studios we work with, the people that we work with. I love my balloon guy. I love the guy that provided power on an E3. We texted a lot during the pandemic, actually. But I would always like to kind of go home and just be like a little hermit. So I think that, you know, looking forward, I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how to do, again, both. How do you present yourself the best digitally, make it way more accessible to the world? I mean, the Game Awards just got more eyeballs on it than the Super Bowl did. Like, it's unreal. So there's a value in that. But there's also a value in, like I said, getting together and having a cheeky pint.
Yeah, and something you said that kind of struck me. You're talking about, you know, connecting with the fans and PAX, and I feel like PAX has risen in you know, popularity and in awareness and that sort of thing. And I was here like, you know, the death knell of E3 was all these really big gaming companies realizing they could just do their own thing. But it also makes me think about how it became a fan event, and then maybe there were other fan events doing it better or that were more localized in various places that also contributed to E3 not being as big of an event as there are more and more of these satellite and fan-oriented events, which E3 was always sort of half, or, you know,
well,
towards
I think
the
that
end.
the smaller events were certainly more comfortable for people to go back to. Like, it's more comfortable now to be in a room with 3,000 versus 30, 60,000 people.
Sure.
But PAX has always been a really good example of, you know, just being a very comfortable, welcoming environment. And certainly they're the biggest. But I do see that as a trend just in my, you know, like my vantage point. People want to go to these smaller shows. And that's one of the things that we've kind of internalized as a company is like, what is your town doing? Like, what's your local meetup? Can we throw some money at them? That's why, you know, a number of us just went to Cape Town, South Africa for Playtopia, which is put on by Free Lives, best friend development team. And they're just doing some incredible things there. It was 750 people pretty much through the door, but it was a really good 750 people. And, you know, they don't really get anybody going down there. They don't get bands coming through town because it's so hard to get to. But if you show up, those people want to hear what you have to say. They want to show you what they're working on. They want to connect. It's one of the best environments that I've ever been to. So we're going to kind of like, our budget next year is like, how do we go to these, you know, how do we do GDC? How do we do these things? But how do we like show up at these smaller shows and really, really connect? And I think that a lot of people are finding value, like you said, in those smaller, tiny little environments, just as much as the big ones.
One of the questions that I have on here that I kind of want to get your take on, Kate, is, you know, when there's one big centralized event where everything is shown off all at once, especially as maybe somebody who isn't, you know, Sony or whatever, like somebody that isn't like guaranteed everyone's going to watch your presentation. Is it better to be like seen as part of that? Or is it better to have your own thing where there's not this competition of these other people that gives you, in theory, a chance to really be the one giving it. And I think that's with E3 being gone, that's the difference I'm seeing is like I'm watching everything at E3, so maybe I see something I wouldn't have otherwise seen versus all these showcases happening at random different times, which I might just skip because I can't watch all of them.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the difference of those? And is it as big of a difference as I'm saying, or?
Well, that was like the one thing about E3 is that it was like for one half of a week, the lightning rod of the world's attention was on games. And I think that it, in a way, that is never going to be replicated the way that it used to be. Because people have, like, again, they found it so easy to do their own digital showcases. They found it easy to do so much. But I think that we're also kind of all taking all boats rise up together. So, like for years, our booth would be next to Larian's booth. And then, we're in a digital showcase right after like the Larian announced. So people are still kind of watching. We're like, okay, well, like, we're not like tagging onto the back of your boat. But at the same time, like if people's attention is focused towards gaming right now, then maybe they're going to stick around and watch us too. Us little guys.
Yeah. So when things are spread out, it might be harder for somebody who isn't as big because maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, as you said, we're not Sony, we're not Microsoft, but we do tend to get a little bit more attention, and we do a pretty dramatic peacocking of our direct and everything. We've reintroduced Volvi to the world, and we had the Nina Struthers arc. So we try to make sure that it's a show worth watching.
You guys are, as I've often described you as, is the A24 of video games.
Mad respect to Annapurna.
Yeah,
we're all
we
fans. Actually, I was wearing an Annapurna shirt, and I had to flip into this.
Who do you work for?
That would have been confusing.
Garbage day.
Yeah,
it's hard, but it's also hard for those to make it in person because I've talked to some of our baby devs, and I even called one tonight. I was like, "What did you think of E3 really?" And he's like, "Actually, my first one was E3." He goes, "No one knew me. No one would talk to me. The only person that talked to him was Dose One." Shout out. I'm like, oh,
shout out Dose One.
Dose One. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dose One is the composer for many Devolver games, but most notably probably Gungeon. But
Samurai Gun for me, dude. I'm a big Samurai Gun fan.
Yeah. Love that game. Yeah. So I was just so like thrilled to hear that. But then they were like, yeah, it was a waste of money for us. It wasn't worth our time. We didn't meet anybody. But then in the end, those connections that they had made ended up being valuable. So I think that, there's some value to being in and around if you can't afford to go inside. I don't know.
Do you think it would have been better for them to try to like start downsizing? Because they're always in the same large space, right? Like, so why didn't they ever, do you think, like just try to downsize at all?
I mean, like, where would you go? Like, what would you even do at that point in time, right? Like, how do you leave the Los Angeles Convention Center and downsize? And then you're in a warehouse out in Long Beach or something, right?
Sounds sick. I'd go to that warehouse.
I mean, the idea is like, I don't think any of us were prepared for how we'd have to downscale or reform or regroup the things. None of us really were prepared for the last 3 years, right?
Yeah. Totally.
I remember looking at text messages to my mom saying, oh, okay, I'll see you in a week. Like when this blows over. And I think, we've had to get creative. We've all had to accept that some things are not going to come back, regrettably. And we're just going to have to see what kind of rises from the ashes of what we had before.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I've kind of got thoughts about maybe why a lot of the other big events have soldiered on and have been able to remain while like E3 kind of has languished. I think a lot of that probably is just ESA incompetence. It seems like they just kept doing the wrong thing over the past few years that they've been trying to get everything back together. Maybe some of that's incompetence. Maybe some of it's just like they struck out on accident and it just happened to be strike after strike after strike. And that was it. You only get 3 strikes, right? And so it's like, so maybe it's some of that. But for me, it's also like, you're talking about some of the bigger ones that are remaining. You've got Gamescom, which is still going super strong. obviously whatever Keighley is doing with the Game Awards and Summer Game Fest, I'm sure he's going to try to scoop up and do something with this. Those are kind of like big consumer and press events. And then you've got stuff like GDC, which you brought up, which is so much more that developer conference meetup. I'm sure that's a good place to like meet developers and a good place to network. And as a publisher, I'm sure that is a good place for that. But E3 was kind of doing all three things. It was like the fan thing, it was the press thing, and it was a place for people to do kind of backroom deals or whatever. And it's like sort of this jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing, right? Where all of these other more individualized events that are more focused towards one of these aspects kind of are doing better. Do you think I'm off base there, or like, I don't know, that kind of just seems like that might be part of the reason that it's not around anymore.
I just heard 17 questions there. So I'm like,
I tend to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that like with E3, I don't think that it was anyone's incompetence or anything of that nature. I think that they were just very good at one thing and having to pivot that quickly, because if you remember, it was March when we found out we weren't going to be able to do it. And by June, you need to have this new model. So I think that, again, that's incredibly, like, that's a juggernaut that you have to try to turn around so quickly. And I think that at the time, what Jeff Keighley was doing was a lot smaller. So that's much easier to turn around on a dime, right? Like you can spin that car around, you can go in a different direction. So I think that he was able to more quickly harness the online aspect of what everybody was doing at the time. And that was, like, for me, that was what I think made the whole difference there, as my personal opinion.
Sure.
It was being able to just capture that lightning, because I've also been to Summer Games Fest Play Days, which is, the June event that's springing up in LA. I Am 8-Bit is putting it on alongside of Jeff Keighley. We're exploring going there as well. I went last year. It's a lovely vibe. It's very, very industry focused. It's invite only. So it's kind
cozy,
of got
maybe.
Yeah, it's very cozy.
Yeah.
You could walk around and not get like pitched to all the time. All the things that we liked about E3 in the early days, right?
Right.
So these things are cropping up. They're coming up and they're coming back. And I think that, people are going to start voting with their dollars and seeing what works for them.
Mm-hmm. In regards to like GDC, and meeting devs and stuff like that, you talked about how valuable that can be. And I think that there is this conception amongst like fans of the gaming industry and people that have been watching E3 for a long time that E3 is going to be a huge loss, because that was this magical place where people could like have these, you go to the hotel room and you show off the game, and then all of a sudden you're publishing with Devolver, or Nintendo bought Snipper Clips or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like, how true is that? Like, do you find that is a lot of the way that you guys end up finding talent, or is that kind of overblown and maybe a misconception about some of these events?
I don't want to say overblown, because it certainly has happened. And we've certainly met some great people through these avenues. I would also say that, we've met people like with Downwell. Nigel saw a clip, 20-second Twitter clip of that game and was like, I want to know this. And then we ended up signing it. So there's certainly plenty of other ways. Like, I think that the idea of something, especially GDC, and it gives people FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. It's like, okay, everyone's hanging out in San Francisco. It's like, hotel rooms are $500 a night. There's a housing crisis now. Like, you're really not safe to walk around the city. Dinner is going to be $100, even if you go to Denny's or something. There's a lot of challenges with getting people to GDC, even if you don't buy a ticket. If you just try to show up and like hang around the park like a lot of people do. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you do have everyone's attention. But, most of the people that show up in GDC kind of already have meetings planned.
Right.
So you're probably, unless you know that you're going to meet someone there, you're probably not going to get like a big company's new attention. So I think a lot of people forget that the games industry is a really small town, because it's a global thing. So there's plenty of other ways to get noticed. If you can't afford to go to GDC, don't give up. Like, you're still going to do fine. Just be nice, show your work. People are going to notice you. So I think that it's kind of like, I don't want to say that GDC is completely unimportant, but I would love to squash the idea that it is the most important, only way to get noticed,
Sure.
or an E3 or a PAX or anything. Again, find out what your local community is doing and go there and show your game or show your work or just talk to people and be nice and say, hey, this is what I do. And if you stand out and you start making friends, they're going to remember you. And then they're going to remember your game. And then they're going to remember what you're working on. They're going to remember your skill.
Right.
And from there, like, that's actually more important for me. And I've seen more people get success that way than I went to GDC, had my laptop ready to pitch at any moment, and I got my game signed.
Yeah, I mean that's true in
The world,
going to
everything.
going to having gone to film festivals and
South by.
in South by in that world, it's like as soon as you go to a place being like, I'm gonna fucking network my ass off. You know, it's like
we
if
can
you're
all
genuine,
feel it and we all hate it.
yeah, exactly. I feel like that's a major faux pas at something like GDC or at E3 or whatever. It's just that being genuine is always what catches people's eye in the first place, and just being passionate about the thing that you've made will be magnetic, right?
And actually, that's one of the things that I loved about Playtopia. Like, not to keep harping on Playtopia, but first off, I just came back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the vibes were really good there. I didn't feel like I was getting sold to or pitched to at any point in time. The one guy that like wanted to actually show me his game was like, no, I promise this is quick. Let me buy you a beer. He goes and gets me a beer. And it was just this little quick game, just like. It's like, if this is a pitch, I want them all the time because
Free beer.
There's not like no one's ever bought me a beer in a pitch before. And even one of our producers, the guy he walked away and we're just sitting there like, what just happened? That was amazing. Can they all do this? And it was just someone who was very enthusiastic about his work and his game. Had it ready to go. It was loaded up. And it didn't feel gross or transactional. He just wanted to show us this cool thing that he made. And I think that a lot of shows are trying to harness more of that vibe. I know the feeling of sitting there at home, looking at GDC, wishing that you could go, or looking at an E3, wishing you could go, and you don't have more than $21 in your bank account or something like that. So I would say keep paying attention to them. But if you can only afford to look online, watch the videos, not the vault, of course, because you got to pay for that. But if you can't show up at things like E3, go make your own E3. Go make your own thing. Go find your local game jam and be a part of that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can also talk about the future in a bigger sense of I think you said earlier, nothing's going to replace E3, but what happens going forward? And I know you can't maybe tell us your internal plans and everything, but I am kind of curious, when this news broke, did it change anything for you? And does it change the future from your perspective? And then maybe we can spin that out into a perspective for everybody.
I mean, when the news broke, like I said, we already kind of knew it. Like we saw it.
Yeah.
So we had already kind of changed.
Right.
We've really put a lot more into, our video event in June, our Volvi, things like that. We're already kind of talking about like what's, scripts already being written for next year. But we had to change what we did in 2020, and we haven't had to stop changing it because it's changing so rapidly. So to say like, oh, we know what we're going to do for the next 5 years, we don't. We're just kind of going around throwing spaghetti at a wall at this point in time and hoping that it works and hoping that, things pay off. Like I said, we're exploring, some new events, some things like that, like WASD in England is another one that we've put a lot of weight behind. We've continued to support PAX, things like that. So we're just going to kind of stay flexible as much as we can.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because these are unprecedented times.
Yeah.
I would like some precedented times, if that's okay.
Oh, dude, a return to precedent would really be awesome. Yeah. I think that you're probably ultimately right, Kate, in that, well, I mean, you're definitely right in that there's going to be nothing like E3, because E3 was a pretty singular event. And I think like a lot of people held it really closely in their nostalgia, parts of their brain. Right. And so in that way, it's that magic of the 90s and 2000s and whatever is definitely gone in this modern era, even COVID notwithstanding, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if we see somebody like a Keeley trying to really make another big thing to kind of take its place, right? I mean, you see that happen so often with events and not just events, with kind of anything, right? It's like there's now like a bit of a vacuum during that time where something could pop back up in the next couple of years. I don't think it's going to happen like right away, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bunch of people try to start something really big and see how many people they can court, right? It being not $1 million to have a booth is probably going to help that.
I mean, I think right now, like Jeff Keighley's got June in LA on lockdown. And it's so
Can he afford the convention center though?
No, but he doesn't need to, because this venue that they have it's one of the weirdest venues I've ever been to in my life. You have to walk through the LA fashion district. And I'm not talking about like Balenciaga and Prada and Gucci. I'm talking about, do you want 100 zebra print bras right now? This is your store. Oh, and there's a Michelada stand right next to it in a fruiteria. And then over here, it's a wholesale wedding dress place. We have to have a license to go in there. And there's just like these creepy mannequins with like embroidered suits everywhere. And then you're just like, this is where I'm going.
I belong here.
Yeah, I belong here. It doesn't feel anything like the convention center. So then you get to it, and it's like an abandoned train depot with like a main event hall, but then like a little Mediterranean restaurant and then pizzeria. So it feels way more organic than the convention center did. There's something just very charming about it. It just feels like good vibes. Like when you're walking up, you're like, okay, this is kind of weird, like, but I'm digging it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we're ever going to get to huge LA convention center things again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that people want that. I mean, I'm sure flash forward to me in 3 years and I'm already wrong, but I mean, for me, it felt like good vibes. And I think that's kind of what everybody's going for. Like I said, it's easier to be around maybe 3,000 people than it is to be around 30,000 people right now.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like I call it the death of the $1 million dragon. All these conventions always have like $1 million dragon out front. It's like, no one needs to spend that money on a dragon. Like, get a hot dog cart. I want a hot dog cart at every event.
It sounds like you just really like hot dogs. You brought them
really like hot dogs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, there is this desperate need to connect. And I think that we're all just sort of like the explosion just happened and we're all just kind of in the dust figuring out where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to find our balance and we'll see what it looks like.
Jordan, what do you think about this? Like, just from the perspective of somebody who looks forward to E3 every year, like, do you want to see one-to-one replacement or something that's similar, or like, do you not care?
Boy, oh boy. Am I bummed, but I'm also in my 30s now. So I'm like realistically like, okay, who cares? Young me and teenage me always had that pie in the sky dream. I'm going to go to E3. I'm going to be a part of the industry, like, or just not even like as a developer or publisher, but just like as a consumer. I just want to be there, feel the energy in the air. And then I'm also like now in my 30s, I'm like, no, that sounds awful. I do not like being in large crowds anymore. It freaks me out. So for me, I'm like, we can have all these smaller events, and then the big guys can have their, they're going to get eyeballs on it no matter what. They don't need E3, which is again why they all pulled out in the first place. They're like, we don't need this. It's too expensive. We can save our marketing budget and go elsewhere with it. And, especially as the industry changes to more digital marketing. So they're like, okay, we can spend our money getting Instagram ads and paying Twitch streamers and Like, we don't need this big showpiece anymore. And then we can just put trailers online. So then it's like, at that point, what does it become? This is going to be for the smaller guys. So I definitely think a move to smaller events, it seems much more achievable and like cozy, I guess. Yeah, it just seems nicer. So while I am sad E3 is dead for my teenage self, I guess I am mourning not just from E3, but I'm mourning my young years, but also, like ready to move into the future and with a more positive and realistic outlook. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we
As
were
a person in my 40s, that just hurt so much. I'm like, oh, my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were so fucking close, man. I mean, I always wanted to go
Yeah.
to E3 too, ever since I was a kid. And it's like we started this podcast and then submitted in 2019 for press badges, got them for the 2020 E3. It was like, hell yeah, man, let's fucking go. I kind of feel like it's our fault. I think if we hadn't ever applied.
See, like I said, I got rejected 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
You're not industry enough. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's funny to talk about that because I think that's what people want. Like I was reading articles in multiple places about E3 going away in preparation for this and just in general. And in the comments section, it's mostly people being like, oh, I was hoping to go one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but it's like,
It's the FOMO you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, you see it on, you see it online, you see it like everywhere for a while, and you're like, this is the most amazing time. And in reality, it's just a convention center. Like, it's a good time. And, again, certainly the Devolver parking lot was magic, but, it's not the end all be all of making your career. And
Yeah.
Right.
or you're being a fan, right? Like there's other local events or whatever. You can go to. Yeah.
There's also to get probably more bird's eye view than we need to for this discussion. It's like gaming is just different now. It's like gaming is the biggest kind of media that exists. It's so much more mainstream than it's ever been. It's like literally everyone games, if it's on your phone, playing Candy Crush or, being an Xbox gamer, literally, I mean, not literally, but so many fucking people play video games more so than they did back when, when we were kids and we were looking at E3 as this mecca of, oh, I'd love to go to this place. Even without COVID, it's kind of been losing its luster as I don't know. I don't want to say counterculture thing. You know what I mean? It's you see it as something like that when you're growing up and you see it in all the gaming mags and stuff like that. And it's just not the world we really live in anymore anyway. And
well,
so
it's kind of cool that gaming isn't othered anymore. It's oh, you're a gamer now.
Yeah.
It's my mom plays Fortnite, dude. She's 65. Shut up. Come on. Yeah. And so you're right. It's not this mythical thing that we need to go find our people, and that's the only time that we're ever gonna be able to talk about our interests or something like that. So that is it is kind of cool to hear you say that. It's we've normalized gaming to the point where it's normal. We've got Matthew McConaughey and Gonzo standing up on stage talking about games.
Those are the two new detectives in the new season of True Detective, by the way.
Season 4 just announced.
Yeah.
No, it's the whole industry is scary right now. You've got record layoffs. It's scary. And so, I can't sit here on, this podcast and say that I know exactly what the future of events is going to look like. But I just know that everyone's just trying to stay flexible and do the best they can and weather these unprecedented times. Weather what's going to happen. And I know that at all of our hearts, we just want to make cool games. We want to provide some 2 to 60 hour escape from all that shit that's going on outside that door, right?
Let's cap it at 60 though. Yeah.
Cap it at 60.
No more than that. I'm
maybe some of these AAAs too can use some of the money that they save from buying massive spots at the convention center to pay their employees. Yeah. That might be nice.
All right. Well, we should wrap this up. This has been a fantastic conversation. Is there anything anybody wants to make sure and say before we close out on this discussion about E3?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just want to thank you, Kate, for coming on. Always great to have you here. And thanks for your insight in this.
Yes.
It's nice to hear insight from somebody working in the industry on this kind of stuff. So we're not just blowing smoke out of our ass talking about E3.
Yeah.
I will text my balloon guy and tell him you'll miss him.
Yeah, we sure do.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it then for our talk on E3. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the games we've been playing recently. This week, I played a few new games that I actually can talk about. So how about that? I know, though, David, you talked a little bit about this last week, so I don't know that I want to go too deep into it, but I did play Sonic Dream Team. We have an Apple TV, like a physical Apple TV device, and my brother-in-law is logged into it, and he's like an Apple head. He's got like everything on there, you know what I mean? Including Apple Arcade. So I played it on there, which I don't know if it's my Apple device. There's a little bit of lag on occasion with this game, and I think maybe I need to like go and delete some stuff on the Apple TV because it's kind of a terrible game to have a lag on.
What controller are you using?
And it could be the controller too. It's a third party controller I got at some point to play games on the Apple Arcade.
Yeah, try like an Xbox controller or like even a Switch Pro controller. I think would work.
Yeah, I think I need to try that to see if that's the problem, because it hasn't been a problem with other games. But this one's pretty like. Inputs matter right in the moment because it's fast paced. Yeah. But even with that, I had a lot of fun. My kid and I played it in the middle of the night. I introduced it to him when he was having those fever dreams that night. And it was funny because like I got him up to be like, "Are you okay?" And we started playing and he goes, "Are all Sonic games about dreams?" And I didn't like realize because that the game was about dreams. I just thought it was called Dream Team. And I'm like, "What are you talking?" Like, oh, this game literally is about dreams. Okay.
Yeah, that character's name is REM. Yeah.
But it's really fun, actually. I'm really enjoying it.
Dude, it's awesome. I played it more this past week as well. I really, really like it. Yeah.
And then he and I have been playing a lot of games together. We have been completioning, that's not the right word, Super Mario Wonder.
You've been Gerard the completing.
Yeah. Like, we've been scamming charities. We've been going back and like finding all the levels we missed and like getting all the secret levels, and then we did that as best we could, and then realized you have to get all the purple coins to get the final level. So we're going back through and getting all the purple coins. And at some point, he finally was like, "I want to try the online," which I had been resistant to, and I kind of get it now. I don't love it, but it does make it easier, right? Mm-hmm. And like, so like for kids or for people who are struggling, I mean, I kind of wish we hadn't had it on for like the last level because it made it so there was another pair of people who were playing with us. Mm-hmm. But it kind of was fun community. Like we were, me and my kid and these other two people, like we beat the last level together. You know what I mean? Like helping each other. So I feel both ways about it.
I don't hate it. I think especially kids would love it, and I think I know a lot of people that love it. It's not for me personally.
Yeah,
but it's a cool feature to have. It might as well be there.
That's how I feel as well. And it is kind of fun sometimes interacting with people in this weird way that it is. And then lastly, I wanted to mention Figment. I've had this game in my library for a really long time, and because we were sick and at home, like he was like, "I want to replay Luigi's Mansion." I was like, "Dude, I played that game like 3 or 4 times with you. I'm not playing that." He's like, "Then I want to replay this." I'm like, "Dude, I don't want to replay that. How about we look through my games and find something?" Because I have like 15 games I've never played. You know what I mean? Like more than that, probably. We picked out Figment, and it's a nice little game you can beat in 5-ish or so hours. So we beat it.
Nice.
It's a puzzle.
It looks really pretty.
It's a puzzle game primarily. There's some combat. The combat's a little clunky, but I got used to it as it went on, and I got, you know what I mean? Like, and my kid kind of picked up on the puzzles. I think it's the first time he like started solving all these puzzles by himself. At first it was a little hard for him, but then he was like figuring stuff out before me sometimes. So it was great. And it's interesting. It's like all in the mind, and the person, you're like their courage, and you're getting rid of nightmares, and they're going through trauma, and it kind of makes sense at the end, so I won't spoil it. But it was an enjoyable experience, and I'm glad to have removed that from the backlog.
If you guys like that, you should play Cocoon. Cocoon
really?
This looks kind of like it's isometric like that, but it's very puzzle kind of heavy, and it's really pretty. I think you guys might like that game a lot.
Good to know. Well, that's the games I wanted to mention for this week.
I'll go because I only have 2 because I've just I can't play games. So I've been playing Super Mario RPG as my go to bed game. So I've been playing it at in like 15-minute increments before I get too tired to hold my Switch, and I don't want to drop it on my face while I'm laying in bed. And yeah, it almost is a fever dream playing that game now. Like the last time I played it, which was also a fever dream when I couldn't sleep for more than 30, 45 minutes at a time because I was coughing and waking myself up. So I felt you there, Patrick.
Yes.
But no, yeah, still great game. I think I have 5 stars, and I think I am not like rounding out my playthrough, but I'm definitely like getting closer to the end for sure. Still like it. I still have some issues with it, but overall, a solid 8 out of 10. Also, this past week, last week, I purchased a Xbox Series X on sale. Walmart was having a $150 off sale, and I could not resist. I had to bite. And then I had looked into it because I knew they were doing a remodel soon, and the remodel is going to be digital only. I also want a 4K UHD Blu-ray player. So bam, bam, 1, 2. I check out a lot of movies from the library. It makes sense. So on that note, the first game I got was a game I've beaten like 10 times, Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is like super ironic, but it's a good way to break in the system because it's a game that's just really sticks in my brain every time I play it. And it's like I'm playing through it for the first time in probably about 5 years, and I'm noticing all the differences because I'm like, oh, you don't meet that character there. Oh, this is a new area. Oh, this is, but it's also still hits all the right notes. You still got the little briefcase where you got to organize your item system. The weapons hit the same. Having played Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake, the jump from 2 to 2 was crazy. The jump from 4 to 4 is like, okay. It's like just a little bit less because 4 still feels pretty modern when I played it 5 years ago, which is just a testament to how well that game holds up. But the remake does it justice, brings the graphics up, like are crisp, beautiful. I've been playing in 4K 120 hertz. My eyeballs are freaking ready, dude. Honestly, I don't know if I can tell the difference between 60 and 120 hertz. Don't come
Probably
at me.
not. Yeah,
Your eyeballs don't register that. But anyway, point being, having a good time. Got my Series X up and running, so I am now current gen.
Congratulations. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been I've been playing a little bit of current gen, I guess. But yeah, the games I've been playing recently. First off, I want to say we did our Secret Santa. Kind of forgot to shout that at the top of the show. It was a ton of fun doing the Secret Santa. We played some Mario Kart afterwards as well, and that was a ton of fun. I have Shell Shock from the Blue Shell and Bomb combo that Summer inflicted on all of us, and then also played a little bit of Smash as well with my friends Robert and Lauren the other day. That was a ton of fun. But yeah, what I've been playing that Link's Awakening DX HD game that I got on itch.io. Playing that on the Steam Deck is really awesome and a perfect way to play it, I think. And, we talked about it earlier, so I won't, belabor the point too much, but that is a really, really awesome game. And I really recommend people get that running if you've got a computer that can play it. And I bet you anything, a fucking toaster could play that game. It's very lightweight. Whenever it came out, I got this game like at a discount, but I started finally playing The Last of Us Part 1 in earnest. And I've been playing that on my Steam Deck. Anything I play on PC, I play on my Steam Deck pretty much. Because when I first tried it out, whenever the game first came out, it was unplayable on the deck. Like it looked like shit. It ran horribly. I would call that unplayable, right? But now it's been like 6 months since that game came out on PC, and I'm very fucking surprised at how well this game both looks and plays on Steam Deck. I'm having a really good time. And honestly, playing it in bed with some headphones on with all the lights off is a pretty immersive way to play this game, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's obviously playing at like ultra low settings or whatever. It's like the lowest settings that you can have, but they've really optimized how the game looks at low settings. And, you're not getting a PS5 level quality, obviously, but at a locked 30 frames per second, I'm pretty immersed in this game and I'm having a really good time. And, I've only really ever played like the intro to this game before, so I'm actually looking forward to playing through this game properly for the first time after having watched the show. So that's a recommendation from me if you have that platform. Real briefly, I played the Justice 99 Maximus Cup, which was Super Mario Wonder themed. I kind of did it just to do it. I don't love this theme, to be honest. Like all the blocks are like different items. So like, I think like the L block is like a bunch of pipes all together. It's like green pipes, and it's kind of a little too busy. So I got it to do it, and I'm probably not going to play on this theme ever again, even though the music is wonderful and everything else about it was lovely. Lastly, I've been playing so much of my RGB 30, including the Pico 8. And one of the games I wanted to shout out this week as my Pico 8 recommendation is a game called BAS, B-A-S, which stands for Birds and Saws. And this is a really simple game where you play a chicken jumping off walls and avoiding saws. And it sounds incredibly simple. And that's because, like so many Pico 8 games, it is. And it's just a little mindless fun thing to throw on my little, basically, Pico 8 handheld that I have. And so much so that when you go to the Pico 8 like site for Baz, it shows the game playing on like a pixelated RGB 30. Like this, I love how this device has basically become the Pico 8 machine. It's like Pico 8 is like an imaginary console, but it basically is a real console now because everybody has one of these things just to play Pico 8 games on. But this is a really fun game. Don't sleep on Pico 8, man. There's a lot of really creative bite-sized indie games on that platform. And having a little portable handheld emulator is a great way to play those games. But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it then for this episode on E3 being officially dead. Thanks again to Kate Ludlow for coming on and joining us for the main topic.
We love Kate.
Yes. Thanks to MilkyWay.co for doing our website. Thanks to Corduroy for doing our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, you can find me most places as PDYX.
You can find me at Boardan on the Discord, on Instagram, and Letterboxd. And I'm now remembering I need to go check my mail because Carrie said he sent me something else. So I'm having that thought right now. So I need to say it out loud.
You can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook. We got our website, switchheads.com. And then we've got our Discord and Facebook group, both of which will be linked in the description of this episode. And also, go check out Devolver. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been playing fucking Devolver games. But Devolver, one of the best publishers out there, man. Consistent quality games. Kate's a friend, so it's great to have her on. But man, I've been a fan of Devolver published games for pretty much 15 years. Like, they're one of the best in the biz. So go play some Devolver games on us. That doesn't make sense. I'm not going to buy them for you. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode on E3 being dead. We love you guys. We will be back very soon with our annual Golden Heads Award episode. So make sure you stay tuned. And you know what? If you're listening right now, I hope you guys have a very happy holiday season. Thank you so much for spending your 2023 with us here at Super Switch Headz. We love you guys so much. We wouldn't be doing this podcast if nobody listened to it. Actually, that's not true. I might be doing it if nobody's listening. But you guys mean the fucking world to us, and I hope that you guys all have a great time spending time with family or just spending time alone. Whatever you do, I hope you have a nice break and you take care of yourself because you deserve it, and we love you very much. That's going to do it, everybody. You know the drill. Be safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. In the meantime, play Devolver games. We love you very much. We'll see you next week, baby. Bye-bye.